Okay, it's now I have the pleasure to welcome Tim Wise from the University of Salford, and who has written an absolutely excellent book about yodel in the US. Absolutely excellent stuff. Now, the uncoolest in many people's view type of musical production technique, vocal production technique that you can think of. All the more reason to study it. And hats off to Tim for having made a serious attempt, and a successful serious attempt, to describe yodeling in the United States of America and its development and its cultural meanings. Can I say that, Tim? Is that...
Yeah, yes, thank you. That's exactly what I asked you to say.
Oh, good. He didn't ask me to say anything, so I was hoping to come up with a bit of a answer. Tim is, however, going to speak about something that, I love this, because my doctoral thesis was about a theme tune, about one theme tune, the Kojak thing. Now he's going to talk about theme tunes, so I have about music. Oh, I know that. Masculinity and myth. I don't know what he's talking about. And so it's about the football theme, the TV theme. Go.
I don't know what he's going to talk about. Do you recognise this voice? Don't you know this voice? No, it's the evil child. You must all die.
No, you don't recognise it.
We probably will.
Yes, you will when you die.
Give him a big hand. Welcome onto the stage, Tim Wise.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Phil. Thank you, everybody. Lovely to be here in Helsinki. Always wanted to be here. It's my first opportunity. My talk is going to address the theme of how musicology and cultural studies can benefit one another. Even though I'm supposed to be talking about musicology, I really don't have any transcriptions in here. It's not because I can't read music, I just didn't bother with that. So I'm going to play a few sound recordings that I hope will help. The idea for this talk actually occurred to me when I wondered why. I grew up in rural Texas, and all the superintendents and principals of the schools, the local schools, happened to be former football coaches. And I wondered why it was that the football coaches rose to positions of power where the academics, taught geometry or history or something like that, they just stayed teachers. So I want to talk today about the role of music plays in the broadcasting of professional football in the United States of America. And I'm going to focus on a few items of music that have been heard for many, many years in the United States in mass media presentations of that game. And my thesis is that music plays a significant role in the presentation of the sport. And specifically, I want to argue that music provides, specifically, I want to argue that music provides ideas and associations that, when they are fitted to filmed images of the football players in action, contribute to a romantic masculine ideal that has been valorized in the United States. So really, I'm talking about music as propaganda. Because professional American football players take such a beating in each game and they need time to recover, professional football games are played only once a week in that country. So just for the sake of comparison, I'll tell you that the regular season of the National Football League, or NFL, comprises 16 games, only 16 games. While in professional basketball seasons they have 82 games, and in baseball 162. So there's not much television to be broadcast, not much football to be broadcast. And so because there were fewer games, but a demand for this sport, the producers, the broadcasters looked around for some way to fill this gap. And the answer was a thing called NFL Films. And I'll give you a brief example of the NFL Films style. only without the images. And as you listen to this, since we're talking about voice, I want you to notice the quality of the voice in this, as well as the imagery of the text and the accompanying music. Let's hope these sound files work.
Professional football in America is a special game, a unique game. Played nowhere else on earth, it is a rare game. The men who play it make it so.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Let's have fun. Come to this, buddy. We don't have hearts. All day long. Let's just kick this for all day long. Take it out. Don't stop. Take it out. Let's go. Catch up somebody.
Pro football is a mirror of early America, reflecting toughness, courage, and self-denial.
And you probably hear allusions to other music in this, and this is what I'm going to talk about in a moment. And you hear that portentous voice and the purple prose.
The game is wide open, not confined. X's and O's on a blackboard are translated into imagination on the field. It can be one man rising above the obscurity of the grim, no-glory duty of special teams. It's a lineman clawing through the carnage of the scrimmage line and devouring the quarterback.
Round right, box 2, run 7.
Okay.
That's why I've seen tonight.
So the NFL Films, which this music comes from, was the brainchild of a man named Ed Sabol. In 1962, he secured the right to film the National Football League's championship game. And the NFL commissioner, Pete Rozelle, was so impressed with the result that he eventually arranged for Sabol to film all of the league's games. Rozelle wanted mystique, and this Sabol and his son Steve, who worked with him, certainly provided. One thing Sabol always insisted upon was that one of the cameras should film everything in slow motion. To make the film product more appealing, he hired composers to add music, and he added voiceover. But this voiceover was not the usual play-by-play commentary that you'd expect in sports, but a specially written text that alternated between prose and verse. Purple prose, we call it in America. Under various titles, these films have been showing for the past 40 years. His son, Steve Sabol, taking over the production after his father's retirement. These films very neatly fit Jean Baudrillard's conception of hyper-reality. They are not the game, but a reworking of it. And in some cases, the entire football season is compressed into a half-hour program. But neither are they the typical highlights program. They create their own vision of the game, intensified, dreamlike, and mythic. Steve Sabol said that his father, quote, wanted to show the game the way Hollywood portrayed fiction, that is, with a dramatic flair. Close quote. The super slow motion camera work makes the violence of the game appear lyrical and balletic. The text ennobles the action, and the music, and this is what I want to focus on, the music brings particular associations from popular culture to bear upon their hyperreal construction. According to creator Sabol, quote, the NFL always had a history, but we gave it a mythology, close quote. Much of the music for the NFL films in the early days was composed by Sam Spence. I want to explore some of the associations. He drew upon popular culture, and I want to explore some of the associations that the average viewer at home watching this may have had, as well as to ponder the probable intentions of the music in the context of this hyper-real brute ballet. In other words, I want to look at how this music is creating meaning in this particular context. When we hear some of Spence's music, we are struck by its similarities to other popular pieces of the day. In this case, the late 1960s and early 1970s. rather than accuse Spence of plagiarism or lack of originality, I would suggest that he's making use of topics or tropes, to use I'm learning a lot today. Topics have been discussed by numerous writers, Leonard Ratner, Raymond Monell, and others, so I won't really go into that. But if we keep this idea of musical topic in mind, we can see how the themes Spence employs connote associations, don't know where I'm with this, connote associations which glorify the game of football as was intended by Sebald. I will focus on just one example, a piece called Magnificent 11, if I can find it. The Magnificent 11. The title alone instantly suggests the 1960 film, The Magnificent Seven, with music composed by Elmer Bernstein. The fact that many of us know this music is proof enough of the success of the film, but also its title music. The music has a famous fanfare-like opening gesture full of springy tension and bounce, over which soars a typical cowboy-style melody arranging arpeggios. So I think, this is
A time for achievement, a time for purpose, a time for glory.
technique, just invert instead of dum dum da dum. He goes dum dum da dum. This just inverts the tunes, but this clearly echoes this fanfare topic as I just said. Spence is playfully echoing this theme in a way that suggests working with a topic or a trope, alluding not just to Bernstein's music, but to ideas associated with the heroes of the films. The associations are clear enough. The 7 of the original film expanded to 11, that's the number of men on an American football team. Spence regularly made effective use of these kinds of popular tropes. Well-established musical codes from an earlier hit, basically. His music is full of allusions to other music associated with popular masculine hero types. For example, that fast jazz waltz we heard in the first thing, this seems to be an allusion to Lalo Schifrin's music for a TV program called Mannix. It sounds almost virtually like it. He was a tough guy, as TV cops always are. There's also allusions to Henry Mancini's Peter Gunn, another television detective and man of action. And later, I hope I've got this, to Ennio Morricone's music for Sergio Leone's westerns, just to mention only 3. But in all cases, the crystal clear references are to tough men in the then current popular culture. As a totality, the careful editing of the slow motion shots, the recordings of the voiceovers, the voices of the players and the coaches, the portentous language of the narrator, and the richly associated music all work together to suggest not a mere football player, but a mythic masculine hero. In this telling, football is elevated beyond a game to a heroic battle of valiant individuals locked in eternal combat. The NFL, in fact, I'll come to that later. Sorry, I'm stepping my slides. I threw these together at the last minute. The NFL films make the myth corporeal. The football player is metamorphosed into a hero who sacrifices his body for us. A bodily sacrifice celebrated weekly, like the Sabbath, not with wine, but with beer and unleavened bread, if you consider tortilla chips and crisps or unleavened bread. Okay, so now I want to turn to another theme. I decided I would work into Fox stuff as well, the NFL stuff as well. I'm going to turn now to the much more recent piece. This is the theme that the Fox network has used since 1994 for its weekly football broadcast. in this Fox theme, the simultaneous sounding of several topics: fanfare, march, and rock anthem. The music is built upon a common rhythm, 2/16 followed by an 8. That appears in a chain, in a chain. This figure doubtless accounts for the forward thrust of the tune, and it's in fact a figure that has the status of a museme, and has been discussed at length by Raymond Monell in the sense of music, as well as Phil Tagg and Bob Clarida in general title tunes. Since this rhythm suggests the gallop of horses, it has often been used to connote horses, speed, power, and so forth. Here, however, where the texture is so dense, thickened by this massive reverberation, and the atmosphere is so heavy from the steady semiquavers in the bass and the relentlessness of the figure, clearly suggests massive weight, power, and momentum. This figure initially appears as a kind of fanfare, which you just heard, but is extended into something resembling a march. But the heavy rock backbeat, now we know where that came from, and the overdriven guitar sound suggest rock anthem topic as well. And indeed, the song is very like the Final Countdown, which was a 1986 hit by the Swedish hard rock group Eerola. And in a way, this kind of adds to this myth, the kind of the elite connotations of fanfare and march, the powerful march, and then the more classless associations, perhaps, of proletarian rock helps fit this myth of classlessness in America. Add to that the screaming trumpet in the most extreme register, and we have the cue for excitement, tension, and suspense. The Fox network theme, therefore, is not only thrusting in a literal sense, but is infused with connotations of visceral excitement and the suggestion of the limits of human capability as well. And this opening fanfare has another museme that adds special significance. These, I don't know what to call them, phased explosions on the downbeats. This, too, I suggest, emphasizes the hero idea. But what kind of hero is this? Action hero, superhero, surely. A combination of Power Ranger and Jedi Knight. That sound we hear in motion pictures. And so as in Sam Spence's music, of the first generation of football broadcasting music, it is popular culture that provides the imagery and the conception of the hero. The clash of bodies essential to football is here signified in the musical code that recalls the bam, pow, comic book inserts in fistfights in the TV Batman, for example, and the sounds accompanying action sequences in programs ranging from Ultraman to Power Rangers and the intergalactic exploits of Luke Skywalker. Now that I've mentioned a couple of musical examples that I suggest musically encode a hegemonic idea of heroic masculinity, I want to talk a bit about how this encoding is possible. After all, as in speech sounds, there is not necessarily a connection between the actual sound and what it signifies. So how do musical codes come about? This is a very weak theory, but I'm going to put it up here anyway. On a cultural level, there is a reciprocation production feedback loop process, which seems to play a fundamental role in the formation of popular imagery and myth. Items are selected, they are reinforced in a reciprocating manner, and collectively internalized. Then elements or synecdoches trigger the memory of the whole in a way that makes the associations seem natural to us. This process of reciprocation is evident in the masculine coding of what I'm going to call the Marlboro Man, which may not mean a lot to you, but I hope this will be clear. I've already talked about Elmer Bernstein's music for the Magnificent Seven and how that was picked up in the Magnificent 11. That gave Western mythic associations partly through its mere juxtaposition with the film, but one can imagine further associations based upon its ranging arpeggiated figure which connects with cowboy tunes that Lomax had connected. I'll leave all that out. So audiences, the original audiences in the 60s may have been aware of kind of cowboy associations of that, but they certainly were aware of the action heroes in the film. But more importantly, for my thesis, they could hardly have been unfamiliar with the advertising campaign of the Philip Morris Tobacco Company for their Marlboro brand. These cigarettes, at first, had appeared marketed towards women. Almost solely to women, and they were later remarketed in the late 1950s for men. So here's some Marlboro for women. This is clearly the sure enjoying Marlboro. You can't do this anymore. People don't like smoking. But in the 50s, they remarketed Marlboro as a man's product. And so this is the emergence of this idea of the Marlboro man. Eventually, they didn't even have to have the name. So now their final answers showed the picture with a man and a cigarette, and everybody knew that's Marlboro. So this is this rugged type in working man's clothes. So Philip Morris, the company, bought the rights to Bernstein's music in '63, and the campaign was taken to television, and that music has remained connected in many people's imagination with the Marlboro man ever since. This is the reciprocation reinforcement model in action. Because of the cigarettes, by the time Sam Spence alluded to Bernstein's music in Magnificent 11, he was drawing upon fully established tough guy associations. So if we see this feedback model at work in cultural systems, the football game, the television program, the musical gesture, then we can see how ideas get selected, reinforced, and ultimately embedded in our consciousness to the point that they seem natural, and then handed down and elaborated. This, it seems to me, is how the heroic man's music has emerged. Images of popular culture get recycled and reinforced. Of course, the NFL films music has kept up, and later composers such as Tom Hedden and Dave Robidoux and others have incorporated hip-hop and heavy metal topics, but these two clearly have supported and drawn on popular notions of hard men. Now, why is any of this important? So what? What is the big deal about?
Can you do it in 5 minutes?
Yes, I can do it in 2 minutes. What is the big deal about a few pieces of banal television music? In reading football, how the popular press created an American spectacle, author Michael Oriard argues that football is more than a sport, but a narrative for the American people, read variously by fans and allowing the projection of their ideals and aspirations. Oriard was writing about the impact of the turn-of-the-century press. Now that football has been co-opted by television and multinational corporations who fund it, the myth is increasingly shaped by them. Peter Mandelbaum, in his 2004 book, The Meaning of Sports, argues that football is the game most like corporate industrial life and simultaneously like war. And I'm looking for this last thing. Yes. He notes affinities with warfare in imagery and football language. A pass far downfield is a long bomb. The linemen operate in trenches. An all-out assault on a quarterback is called a blitz. And here we hear this with music.
The enemy over there. Get out your friends. You don't go over there and shake hands, smile, hug their neck.
Let's knock them on their backs, put them in the mouth, knock their ass in the dirt. That's what we gotta do. We gotta start that money ball. Smash everybody in the mouth. Take the running backs to the stand. Run up in the stand and slap their mama.
Go upstairs and slap their mama. Right. So here we hear with the military topic, the drum, tattoo, and this kind of stuff. So as the game has grown in importance because of television, so has this myth about this special heroic type in this dream world. The game unquestionably has a special status in America. Its role and function in school is exactly in line with Louis Althusser's concept of ideological state apparatus, as I argue in another paper. America's hegemony over the 60 years or so since World War II rivals that of Rome in antiquity, and it relies on hero myths to justify some of its overseas exploits and heroic narratives as well, both corporate and military. So I would say that one of the roles of NIMiMS would be to introduce a kind of a pragmatic approach to music analysis, sort of like Phil's music analysis for non-musos, so that young people can be aware of when they're hearing propagandist messages through sound as they might be when they're hearing them through language. And I'll just end with a couple of pictures. I know he's not the president anymore, but he so illustrates this idea of a politician co-opting this heroic narrative. Right, thank you very much.
Well, I'm can't think of a better example of what we ought to be doing than that. You know, and who can say that music analysis has nothing to do with us understanding of society? And who can say, you know, who from cultural studies could possibly come along and say this is irrelevant information? I don't understand how the hell that is possible. How the hell can they sort of go along and, I mean, Mandelbaum sounds like a great book, I haven't read it.
It's a good book. It's a very
sounds like a
good
really good book. But boy, could he have used what you found out.
Pardon me?
Boy, could he have used rhetorical question what you found out.
Well, thank you very much.
Any other kind of thing? Maybe there's some critical comments. Kyle, you have a critical comment.
No, I have a comment. It's not a critical one. It's what I find scary. This slide up there, simultaneous sounding of topics. There's another topic for me, and that's quality, high production value. It's really good.
Yeah.
And it's Tchaikovsky's
Yeah.
first piano concerto that comes through that music. When I listened to that music that you played, you said Tchaikovsky piano concerto. It's the first, I assume, for me.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
There is something slick and professional about the whole thing, powerful.
Very.
I played it for my students and they said it sounds like Hummers. If you know what the
Hummers,
the army of Hummers headed at you. But I hadn't thought of it that way, that kind of absolute mastery of the production of it as well.
And the corporations own the studios, and the studios are pumping this stuff out.
Well, that's the ultimate thing, that it serves their purpose, I think, to create this ideal. And it also means that we settle disputes by force.
Yes.
I think it's tough to survive.
Provided it's very disturbing. Yeah, go on, Sue. Then one more after that. Yes, okay. And then we go on, right?
I think that could link in as well to your presentation in that ideals of gender, sexuality can be used, whether it's for warfare or corporate, as sort of keeping people in their place. For example, is useful in your students' reactions to high female vocals. I do Cuban music, couldn't find any Cuban tenors, so I put down higher vocals on my recording. I never heard the end of it. I had musicians in my own band saying, you can't have high vocals, it's just not right. And it's like, well, you know, I'm just using what's available because of the absence of having a Cuban tenor on my doorstep who can do this. So I changed it and adapted it, did higher, breathier, quiet vocals. Those outside of the tradition were happy with that. So you've got performance aesthetics, but performance aesthetics develop for particular reasons. And that masculinity warfare thing is actually very frightening, but also with your Chorita thing, it would be interesting to know more about the social norms within that, which you obviously do, but it's important to analyse it musically and culturally and make people aware of these assumptions. Okay, so it is important not just for really obvious war corporate side of things, but there are very subtle things.
Well, can you keep it to 20 seconds? But you're after him.
Just historically. Just on the production side, it's quite interesting because that's TV production, which is different to cinematic production, so it's actually low budget. So there's a real kind of difference in the sonic quality.
And there's a pointer I'd like to add concerning the importance of brass band music, brass horn sounds in the NFL programs,
Yes.
in American football.
Yes.
I talked with a person I know from St. Olaf's College in Minnesota, and asked him, why is it that in America the level and the quantity of brass instrument players is so overwhelmingly great? And he said that during the Second World War it became obligatory in college and university football to have a marching band of the home team performing in the game. So the association from hence has grown into the colleges and universities that had great football teams. They also had to have great marching bands, and that led into a huge increase of resourcing the music programs, and especially the brass and marching band programs.
So you're exactly right. You're exactly right. It became an educational institution approach.
So we would need football team here in Finland to
Yes.
have
In
Look,
another
folks, I
paper,
don't
I
want
talk
to-
about the music in the
um,
actual football.
I'm thinking of your
Yeah.
mental and psychic welfare, so I think we should take a pause now because we're 10 minutes late.
Yes.